The youngest.
Because when my parents finally got what they were looking for, they stopped having kids.
On the contrary, when he was born, we decided we were never going to do that to the human race again.
But that's a negative talk, and so the focus today is the history of the farm.
Yes.
So it would be, I think, in the 1860s that Philip Siegel homesteaded the 120 acres of the farm out in Oakland, which is the farm. And then John and Mary Preininger came over from Germany, each with their own families. Not exactly sure what year they came over. John Preininger was 10 years older than his wife Mary, and those would be his grandparents. And they had to have been married by 1898 because the oldest of their daughters were born. They had 5 children. They had Lena, born in 1898, Frida, born in 1899, Elsie, who is our grandmother, was born in 1901, Edna was born in 1905, and Clarence in 1907, probably.
How do you know all this?
And because when our Uncle Clarence lived across the field, and when we were kids, Grandma Fink lived on the farm. Grandma loved the farm, she loved the land. And in 1921, our grandparents got married, Elvin and Elsie Fink. And actually, Grandpa was fought in World War I, and in those days, the girls would be hired hands. You know, they go to school to the 8th grade, and then they'd go and work for different people. And our grandmother was an upstairs maid for Mrs. James. James Way stanchions, James Way drinking cups. Fort Atkinson has its history in dairy. There's the Hoard's Dairyman Farm. The Hoard's Dairyman, of course, is a publication well known in agricultural circles. All of that came from Fort, but James Way stanchions, their drinking cups, he really made the modern farm, brought advances to the farm. So my grandmother was an upstairs maid for Mrs. James, and I asked her once, I said, what was that like being a maid? And Grandma said, you know, it's not like you would think on TV. She said those women were not snooty, they just had a lot of work to do. She said those ladies were our friends. And on the first night when she went on date with Grandpa, she had gotten new china that had gold rim around it, and Mrs. James said, Elsie, I'm going to wash the dishes tonight because I don't want them to get chipped, in case she was all nervous and fluttery.
That needs to be corrected. Elsie had to wash the dishes the next morning.
Oh, she had to wash it. I didn't know that part. And so Grandma and Grandpa got married, and then they lived in town, actually. And my grandma's brother, Clarence, would have run the farm until he bought the Kreitz farm across the road. You didn't move out there right
Clarence
away.
lived on our farm?
Yes.
Yes.
So Roy, Norma, Mary, all those guys were born in our house.
I had no idea.
And Dad you didn't move to town out to
1946. I was 10. It had been rented to a man and his children, his
don't
wife
mention names because it's
had died. And when they vacated, the house inside was black because they burned tires in the stoves.
Wow.
And we had to scrub black off of every inch of the inside of the house.
So you moved there, and you would have been after the war.
It was in 1946. I was 10 years old.
What grade were you in?
Fifth.
Fifth grade.
So my question is, when did his grandparents move off the farm that it actually became a rental to someone else?
So the grandparents would have moved off the farm when Clarence took over the farm.
Okay.
Clarence
And then
ran,
Clarence bought
ran
the
the
place.
farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he took Kreitz's farm when that was available.
And Kreitz's farm is where our heifers spent the summer, just for those of you who have seen those.
Kreitz's farm is where Jason is.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And and then they rented it for a couple of years to this family.
And you would have gone to country school, and you guys, did you walk or did you ride with your
Both.
cousins and stuff?
Both.
Uphill both ways.
Yeah.
Through 10
Sixth,
feet of snow.
7th, and 8th grade. And I was just
Tell us anything that.
Well, I was telling Pastor the other day, it took me about a half a year to get caught up in the 6th grade. And when we went to high school, we were there about a half a year before high school got caught up to what we had learned in the country school. Country school was great, and that was 8 grades with one teacher.
You would have gone to the Ives school. Was it at Ives school when you rolled the marble down the floor?
Oh no, that was high school. Maybe that's why. I'll leave that.
Did you get extra attention?
So then our parents got married in 1961, and it was actually the summer before you got married that they brought plumbing, right? That
Then
they
we put the water in, yes.
put the water in. I can remember being a little kid.
Prior to that, you had what?
We had the pump in the outhouse.
Yeah, you had.
Terrifying thought.
Really?
It
Up
is.
to 1960 you used the outhouse yet?
Good grief.
And I can still remember your horse harnesses hanging on the granary in the corn crib. When did you get rid of your horses?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know.
So Mom and Dad got married. Mom was a town girl, and she adapted incredibly well. Then the 5 of us were all born on the farm, and our grandmother lived in a trailer house. Well, first of all, you and Mom started out in a trailer house.
Mobile home.
We were born
We were born in a hospital.
Well, of course we were born in the hospital, but we were
Well,
living
I'm
on
just
the...
not sure how back to the earth we're getting.
Yeah.
But you can go back to Grandma Fink. She was born in our house.
Grandma Fink was born in our house, literally.
I
We
was
were
born on Roosevelt Street.
You were born?
in a house, not on the road.
Okay. There's a home births are making a comeback.
And so Mom and Dad's family spanned the 60s and the 70s. And well, then Grandma must have, so you probably bought the farm when your dad died?
Yes. He died 67. I think I bought it 68.
And then Keith and I bought the farm, and we were both single, so everybody, of course, thought that Keith and Kim Fink were husband and wife when you saw that on documentation. We had to go and drop our books off one time, and the lady did not know me, and she said, "Oh, is Kim joining you, or do you have her things?" And it's that horrifying moment that I realized she assumed that I was Keith and assumed Kim to be my wife, and I said, "Ma'am, I'm Kim. Keith is my brother. I wouldn't marry him if he's the last man on earth."
Now, how's it you came to be called Kim?
Yes, Katie. How is it that I came to be called Kim? There was debate.
Your parents couldn't agree on a name, and Mom wanted to get out of the hospital, and the only way she could is if she filled out the paperwork. So that helped her figure out what she should call you.
Because Dad was in the field.
Dad was in the field, and we were, under pressure, so.
The conversation that I always heard is that Mom wanted Kim Carl and Dad wanted Carl Kim, and so Katie answered the phone, and Mom wanted to talk to Dad, and he was busy, so she said, "Just name him Kim Carl. Dad will get used to it." And so she did, and he did.
There you go.
No, he hasn't.
Then when we were growing up, Dad had Guernseys, and everybody at that time had Guernseys, especially in our area of Wisconsin. And you even ship the milk to Golden Guernsey.
Holsteins. Our whole 4-H club had Holsteins. We were like the only Guernseys.
There were many farms west of Fort Atkinson on the road coming out to our farm that all had Guernseys. And there were a lot of Guernsey herds.
There were a lot of Guernsey herds. Not everybody, but there were a lot of Guernsey herds. Now there are none.
That's not the way I remember it either.
And
Anyways.
And having Grandma on the farm was kind of nice because I happened to be born on her birthday. And I wasn't her favorite. She and I just saw eye to eye. I, being the youngest, I was persecuted by my older brothers, so I knew if I could get to Grandma's house in time, I would be okay.
Wow. You're awfully quiet over there. It's probably best that way.
So there were Guernseys, and then what happened?
Oh.
Then we raised goats, and we had the goat dairy. And then
At one time, we were the largest milkers of dairy goats. We had 108 or 110 in our peak.
110.
largest,
by
not
hand.
in Wisconsin. No, Considine said.
Oh,
110.
Probably the
goats.
largest in the country. And then we lost the market, and then we bought jerseys.
Goat memories are all bad.
No, they're not.
We got the Jersey. You can't ask for a more perfect animal than a Jersey cow.
Other than the cow.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Keith and I farmed together, and then I got married. We still learned how to breed the cow. I learned how to breed the cows, so I still am able to lend a hand now and then.
Chris likes your jokes.
Kevin didn't care much for the farm too much,
I like the farm.
but not as a life.
I like it more now than I did then.
You like to go visit.
I like to visit, but it's like Chicago. I like Chicago. I just wouldn't want to live there.
I remember one time it was a Sunday morning, and Kevin was going down one side of the manger, and a heifer was coming up the other, and got underneath his legs.
Really?
Took you for a ride?
Yes.
Just like the time when Elsie walked into the hen house just as the hog was coming out.
That's funny.
He took her for a ride.
Wow.
Really?
I'd have been perfectly
Sounds
content to
terrible.
farm, but it just was not practical.
It was a fun. I mean, I like about the farm sitting in the barn at the night when the chores are done, shutting the lights off, and hearing the stanchions click and the cows chewing and nestling down.
I liked coming into the barn in the morning, turning the lights on, hearing the cows get up and wake up.
Yeah.
What I liked
agrees
was
me.
to hear them sigh when you bedded them, and then they lay down in the bedding and heaved that long sigh.
The first day of pasture, they'd always go kicking up. And we used to have, I mean, yes, we had dairy, but we had other things too. We would have chickens. We had a lot of people who would resort around the Lake Koshkanon, and we would butcher a lot of chickens in the summer. And the first batch would always be ready about the first week of summer vacation because Grandpa was a good manager.
And they would always live in the house.
They did not.
Oh, there was
When they
plenty
were
of
little.
animals in
Oh yeah, they.
Sometimes it started in
We
the
would bring a
house.
calf in because it was
Yeah, you'd
sick
have
and
to.
cold.
One
Or a
time
baby
we had a
goat.
horse in the house.
or lambs. Little lambs would have to come in. Lambs, when they're born, their wool is just like pinheads. It's all bumpy. Yeah.
My favorite early farm memories are of Dad's 2-cylinder John Deere tractors. I had no warm memories related to animals unless I was eating them. I'm more of an equipment man myself.
Yeah, I remember when we had the chicks in because it got too cold outside and they were penned with oven gates right between the door, inside the back door, papers down and everything, and I was going to hang up a key and I tripped.
Into the chickens?
He stepped on one and he gutted it.
Oh, I cried. That was sad.
Well, I remember walking up in the woods in the morning with you, going looking for the cows, watching the sun come up, or just as it's coming up. Good memories.
Or at nighttime when you're doing hay and the sun is going down, like in the long days of June, and you hear the cowbell getting farther and farther and farther away as the cows are walking up into the woods at night. And strawberries and ice cream.
Yeah, our cows always have bells.
Because their horns didn't work.
And how about the time when you started the truck on fire?
So it's a family farm and Grandma lived in the trailer, but it was chore time. I was 2 or 3.
Excuse me, should say Grandma lived in a mobile home.
Yeah. And
Otherwise they'll think we were mean to her.
and the girls you guys were milking goats? You're doing chores.
Yes.
And if you remember the old TV show Emergency, the boys used to play that. They used to play Johnny and Roy.
I thought it was Hogan's Heroes.
It was Emergency. And there was matches in the truck, in the farm truck, and there was baler twine on the floor. And I can remember lighting the match, and I was holding the match, and I can remember my finger getting very hot, so I dropped it. And all the fire started in the twine in the truck cab. And so I was yelling, "Help! Help!" And then the boys saw that the truck was burning, and Keith came. I can remember him coming up. They were playing out in the dooryard, and he came and he filled a bucket of water. He pulled me out and doused the fire, so Keith saved my life. Kevin went tearing off to try to go back to the woods and find
Mom and
Dad, and he came screaming back, "The truck is burning and Kim is in it." And I don't think that I got spanked at all for that, but I do remember getting a strong warning that if I ever told Grandma Fink, I would be in trouble. And that warning came from you.
Very possible.
I get that.
Very possible.
And then when Mom tried to run you over with the hay wagon?
Oh, you ought to tell that.
Oh my, yes, it was her birthday. And we were just behind the buildings. For some reason, I fell off the wagon. I think she went around a corner or something.
While you were baling hay.
We were baling hay, yeah, and she rolled me ahead of the tire. And finally, I had to angle my roll so I could get away from the tire.
Of course, she didn't know you fell.
No. I told her later. I figured she was planning a celebration that night.
First time I learned how to drive the tractor was up on top. All that Keith showed me how to steer, and he put it into gear. And all I did is I drove while they were picking up bales and putting it on the wagon. And I think even at the end of the field, you had to jump up on the tractor and turn because I couldn't finagle it around.
How old were you at the time?
Not old enough.
I don't think that I could reach the pedals.
That is unsafe actions, you two. Don't try this.
Yeah, don't try that at home. No, I bet I could reach the pedals, but not enough to step on it probably. But I remember we weren't going very fast because you would
ride
jump.
my bike on the road until I was practically 16, and you were driving a tractor before your feet could touch the pedals.
Oh, it was priorities.
I do remember though, because you're the oldest and I'm the youngest, obviously, there's 11 years between us. I can remember laying on mom and dad's bed and you were getting me dressed. And I can remember rolling away because I wanted to watch something outside, and I can remember you lifting my leg. Sit still so I can put your socks on.
Well, or there was the time that Katie and Chris almost killed Keith with powder, baby powder.
Oh my.
What?
He was a baby.
Yeah.
And Mom and I were out milking, and we came in, and they powdered Keith on every end.
So he was a baby. I was 2. She was 4.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't very old. We were just
What
trying
kind
to
of
help
parent
out.
would leave children that young
4, 2, and a
in the
newborn.
house unsupervised for that long?
Those
We
were
were
different
helping out.
times.
Then there was the
Yeah.
time I walked into the barn and caught Kevin with a brick up over his head, ready to throw it.
Who said?
At me.
Over your head, you had
I was throwing it at him?
it. You were going to.
I thought I was throwing it at him.
Well, one of the two.
That was the other time.
Oh.
I remember getting stabbed with a pitchfork.
My temper took over.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah.
That was on
She
purpose?
also shoved
I have
someone
a
through a
temper.
kitchen window. Who was
Yes.
She looks sweet
Shot
now.
Kevin through the kitchen window.
She was in college at the time,
Keith
too.
down the stairs.
She
Yeah,
shot
who threw
Kevin.
me down the stairs and broke my collarbone?
Yeah.
What?
That too, didn't
You did?
you? Yes.
You were the problem child.
I know.
She was Dad's
I
favorite.
know.
Because
You
you
didn't
needed
like
so
any
much
of us.
work.
You're going to restage that again.
So,
I hope there's going to be a lot of editing of this.
from the patriarch standpoint, who was the laziest kid?
Oh, this ought to be interesting.
Don't answer that question.
I don't think I will.
It's okay. I can take it.
Well, I think there might be two who would fit that classification.
As a child, I remember, don't be so lazy. You have to work if you're going to get anywhere. Do your work. You have to work. Don't be so lazy. Now I'm an adult. You work too much. Life isn't just about working. You work too much. Why do you work all the time?
Well, I remember once a young boy failed a grade in school. And he came home and he said to me, "What those guys don't understand, Dad, is that I don't like math." So what are you doing
Sounds like
today?
one of our boys.
Well, it's not my fault that my profession revolves around mathematics.
Go figure.
Besides, I was just a mishandled free spirit.
You always would build toy wood guns.
I built ships.
And sit in cardboard
Airplanes.
boxes and collect wild rice.
Okay. What was the one?
It was good entertainment.
That was Kevin.
Would sit
There
on the
was
living
none.
room floor
To this
in
day.
cardboard boxes and be an Indian collecting wild rice.
To this day, I love my boating.
What I used to like though was after supper. Well, first we had a lot of candlelight suppers, and then the kids would make shadow animals on the wall, And after supper, before I went out to milk, they would all four come and sit, the four older ones, come and sit in my lap, two on each lap. And that was all nice.
Where were you?
Wasn't born.
It wasn't born yet.
That was
Okay.
BK.
We were all quite small to fit in his lap.
Yeah.
I remember candlelight and popcorn after chores.
Oh, yeah.
sometimes.
I remember popcorn Sunday nights. We'd
Yeah,
always
maybe it
come
was
home
a
from
Sunday
church and
night.
have popcorn Sunday nights.
So what I'm hearing here is that the good years were good until Kim came along.
I remember going out for ice cream cones, and Chris could never eat her cone because her teeth were too sensitive.
Yeah, it's
So-
not that way now.
So
I'll have
you
you
would
know.
always have to have a dish, or it would be all over the back seat, and it would be.
I remember
a
once
mess.
4 kids and I took a calf to Equity. And on the way home we bought ice cream. And we got into Jefferson. And we had to stop and let you toss your cone out because it was melting and getting away from you. And we had to throw it in somebody's garbage.
And also in Johnson's Creek at that time was a restaurant that was called the Gobbler. And on the side of the road, they had a big billboard that just said, "Stop, you just passed the Gobbler." And so the boys were coming home with Dad and they yelled, "Stop!" And he stopped and said, "What's wrong?" "You just passed the Gobbler."
That didn't go well.
I remember one time too at Johnson's Creek used to have the cattle auctions up at Equity. And you stayed one time to watch a cow
Yeah,
get
I
sold.
watched a couple.
And I stayed with you, and I can remember just itching my nose and the auctioneer asking, "Was that a bid?" And Dad saying no, and then he said, "Don't move."
I forgot that.
So how did you become a farmer?
That's the story we're telling.
I'm afraid that Dad and Kevin will break out into a sweat. How did I become a farmer? I married a farmer.
Well, let me tell the story.
Yes,
Turn
let
the
Dad tell
camera
the
on.
story.
Uncle Kevin and Aunt Ann and was Elvin around? Was Elvin born yet?
Yes.
Who would have
Elvin
Charles?
and Mom and I went to over to Michigan to visit Chris and her family, and we came home, and it was in July. And Jenny called that night and says, "We want to come over. We want to hear about your trip to Michigan." And so Mom said, "Sure," and she got a meal ready. And then we had eaten and just finished the meal. You could edit that out. And Kim says to Keith, "You better go shut the water off." And I got up and I was at the sink. I got a drink. And I turned around and here stands Keith with a girl, holding hands with a girl.
So how old is Keith at this point?
35. And he said, "Mom and Dad, this is my girlfriend Laura from New Hampshire who I met on the internet." And I thought so many things I couldn't say. And we began asking a few questions. And I think we had talked maybe 10 minutes or so. He had introduced her. Her name was Laura. And when, I don't know if I had all the details of who Laura was or where she was really from or not, but I remember turning to her and saying, "I'm sorry. What did he say your name was?"
Yes. Well, this was after Mom Fink kind of put some things together in her mind and figured out that I actually worked at a Bible college that Chris attended, And once Dad figured out that the people at the Bible college trusted me enough to work there, he could probably trust us enough to find out what my name was again.
Well, by then I knew that he didn't find you on the internet.
Right, right. But
Oh, I did.
well, yeah, kind of the way that we were introduced was through the family's pastor, who was good friends with my pastor and his wife up in Iron Mountain, Michigan. And so Keith and I actually started corresponding through email, and really that was our correspondence for several weeks before he called me on the telephone. And then while Mom and Dad and Kevin and Ann were away to Michigan over July 4th, I actually came down to the farm. We had plans on Keith coming to meet me in person, but I knew that I was going to be actually very close in the area a couple nights before, but I hadn't told Keith that because I knew he wanted to come meet me up in northern Wisconsin. But Kim and Jennifer knew that Keith was corresponding with someone, but nobody else in the family did. It was kept very hush-hush. And so that's why the night that I walked into the kitchen with Keith, Dad and Kevin especially were just in such shock and dismay. And
I wouldn't call it dismay.
well, not dismay, just I guess just shock.
Dismay
Yeah.
smacks more of a negative.
No, but shock, and
We were intentionally deceived there. Because you later said what you really should have done was blackened a couple teeth,
teeth, and
renting a kid, and rolled a package of cigarettes up in your shirt sleeve.
right to
for
watch
the
it.
meeting.
I know. No, and it was kind of nerve-wracking because yes, it was kept quiet with the four of us, except I think Katie found out a couple nights before. Also, it seems to me that someone had let Katie in on it.
And I found out before you were introduced to the family.
Well, maybe it was you then that found out a couple nights earlier. But then the following weekend, after I met Mom and Dad and Kevin and Ann, well, actually that night, Dad started calling his two sisters and telling the news to them. And the following weekend when I came down, they had a family party up at Kim and Jennifer's house, and Chris came over from Michigan, and the aunts came, and so it was a chance for everybody to meet me. And at the time, I felt like it was practically an engagement party.
You knew right away you wanted to marry him,
Even
right?
though we had only met, face to face a couple weeks earlier. So
Yeah, because our background check hadn't come back yet.
Yeah, really.
at that time.
You got to remember, he was 35 years old,
right.
or 34.
Well, yes, because when we got married, he was 35. I think.
35 when you got married.
Yeah, and I was approaching 31
That's why we're so old with
younger children. Right.
But you knew right away that you wanted to marry him, right?
Yeah, you're bringing up a very sticky situation.
Well, how do you feel about it today? Would you go back and change your decision if you could?
No.
Good answer.
No, you wouldn't go back.
And she didn't even hesitate.
I asked two questions today and only got one answer. Could you elaborate your answer
If I could go back.
and change your decision? You said no, so is it no to go back and no to change your decision?
Well, I mean, I could go back, but if it's not going to change my decision, then it doesn't really matter if I go back. There are things in my life I'd like to go back and change, yes, but not this one.
We
So that's how I, yeah,
We
that's how
never
I
thought
became
the
a farmer.
farmer was going to find a wife.
Well, the farmer was very content without a wife.
Didn't
Sure
you
was.
once brag that you would never marry a farmer?
Yes, I don't remember if it actually came out of my mouth, but at one point in my single life, I laughed on the inside and said I would never marry a farmer.
Well, and I remember before Kim was married, one time Mom was facing the stove, and I was standing up by the sink facing the table, and Kim and Keith were kind of motioning toward Mom like this. They had her wrapped around their finger. Yes, you did.
I remember mothers saying that Kevin is the only one who could actually live by himself because he knows how to cook.
I remember one time when Mom was cooking supper on the electric stove and Keith had thrown some trash in the stove, among which was firecrackers. She was not amused.
That's the wood stove.
Yes, he
Yeah.
threw the.
Yeah, you said the electric.
Oh, and there's the Feliz Navidad in the.
Oh, you gotta tell that story.
Our mother absolutely hated the song
And I'm right with her.
Feliz Navidad. And so we had a tape recorder, radio tape recorder, and the tape had Feliz Navidad. So Keith found the tape where it could play.
This was 100 years ago.
Yeah,
Put it at
play
the
Feliz.
point where it would start.
Yeah, put it
Immediately.
of that song. And in the old bathroom was a plug that goes into the light switch. So it was in the light switch, but that plug would only have power to it if the light was on. So he put the recorder into the hamper before we went to bed. And no, we put it right inside the hamper so that she'd have to look for it.
Evil people.
And
With the knowledge that at some point during the night, Mom would be in the bathroom.
yes, with that knowledge. and so when the recorder, she had to get up, and of course the light went on. All of a sudden, please let me know.
And the volume was not turned down.
And Mom's reaction was,
Well,
Then
then we
you heard
started.
everything banging as she was looking for the tape recorder.
how about the time we found she had the snake in the laundry basket?
Oh, that's there. Mom had done laundry that day, and she'd just folded the clothes, and she took them off the line, put them in the basket, but she left the basket outside until it was time to bring it in. And our grandmother by that time had had a stroke, and she was living with Mom and Dad, with us in the farmhouse. And Mom is taking a shower, and she was getting ready to go to bed, and she started to scream. When the towels were laying on the ground, a grass snake had crawled its way inside of the bath towel. And so, of course, the towel got put away into the cupboard, and the snake got put away, and nobody knew it. And she pulled the towel out, and the snake dropped down.
No, the snake was still in the basket.
Oh,
Yeah, I think she was maybe putting towels away.
okay.
And the snake was in the basket.
Anyway, she started, there's a snake in here. And she called for Dad, who heroically, as soon as he found that a snake was involved, said, Keith! And then our grandmother was in her 90s, and she hated snakes. She could do anything. If you had a cut, she'd be right there cleaning it out, prodding it out. Nothing scared her away except for snakes. She hated snakes. Oh, a snake in the house! How did that happen? Oh, it doesn't get in the bed with me. There was a lot of chaos that night.
Battery's going dead. We gotta go home and milk
Yeah,
anyway.
we've got to drive home to get to chores.
We didn't even tell the story about when the horses got out and went running down the road.
Oh yeah, Kim and Jennifer's miniatures.
When the ducks went swimming.
Neighbor had a swimming pool. One morning the ducks went in the neighbor's swimming pool. And ducks, if they're not raised in water, can't swim. So again, Dad and I were walking, and Dad and I discovered the ducks, but Dad was not around when we had to get the ducks out.
I asked Kevin to do that.
So the ducks died?
No, they
Oh,
did
okay.
not die,
All
but
right.
because they did not have the oil on the feathers, they were getting waterlogged.
Oh.
So they could not walk out. They had to be scooped out. And later we found out that the neighbors were hiding behind the windows laughing at the escapades, which you can imagine were going on. He had said something about the pool being very dirty that day.
At least those neighbors were laughing.
Yeah.
Oh, the miniature horses? You haven't heard that story? Oh, well, Uncle Kevin and Jennifer had a couple miniature horses that were in the pasture up past John and Laura's house now.
Yeah,
And,
between us and the hill.
yeah.
They got out, went running down the hill. Yeah, Lightning got away and he bit
This is Lightning, the
the
horse.
horse, yeah.
Yeah.
Bit Franzi in the backside.
Yeah, when he was trying to
Franz
capture
Vegans?
them.
He
Yes,
caught him,
when
they
he
got
was
over the
trying
hill.
to catch them. But we had been trying to breed Lightning to what's Stud's name?
Yeah, Megan to Lightning. Megan.
Megan and Lightning. That's
Lightning
right.
was the stud on it.
And they had been together in the pasture for what, a good year? And then they got out, and then we sold them and found out that Megan was pregnant.
But she had lost a foal.
Had she?
Yeah, she
Remember that.
she lost that at Nichols.
She lost, but we sold her pregnant.
We sold her pregnant. We didn't know she was
And lost
pregnant when we
that
sold
one
her.
too?
No, she didn't lose that one.
Oh. I like those little horses.
Yeah, Keith brought Megan into the house.
And we had the Jersey heifer Connie that would walk up Grandma's steps. She would walk everywhere with us. Connie was a nice cow.
The biggest chicken. The one who diapered and took in the house.
Or like Snickers.
You know, when I was a little boy, I lost my gum in the hen house, but I found it 3 times.
Okay, now it's time to shut it down. Kim's telling jokes.
Well, Hank, now you got a job on your hands. See what part of your family you want to show and what part you're ashamed to show.
So that's the roundabout story of how Hank and Lydia came about and those other kids.